Welcome, welcome to Freaked Out with your psychic medium host, Liz. Finally, we are going to be doing the Karen Reed / John O'Keefe case. I tell you guys, this was wild. Just even your suggesting this case, I had to run to it. I had many people on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, personal messages, you name it. So I figured, why not go in and do this, because as of tomorrow, she's going to be doing the jury selection for the next trial, which is so crazy that she has to even do this again. But we're going to talk about it all here today. By the way, if you guys ever want my attention in the sense of working on cases, highly recommend you guys, a bunch of you, all flooding the same information at the same time will definitely get my attention. But before I started watching this documentary, I was like, oh, wow, I have no idea who did this, who done it, what happened, how did it go down, until I watched the documentary. So I'm very glad that I did. I also wanted to give you guys a heads up that a little later on this week, I will be finally doing a Vanderpump predictions video. The new season of The Valley comes out mid-April. So I want to get this done this week because I want to see what I knew and what I didn't know, or whatever the case may be, because there's a lot involved. And I figured it would just be fun to do. I love just deep diving into just fun. Sometimes we need it. I'm also going to be making a full video of reincarnation. I've had a lot of people ask me questions about reincarnation. So I figured that we're going to go forward and do a full-blown video from beginning to end so that people understand it a little bit more. I also plan to do a video here on the exclusive side in relation to The Weeknd and Drake. So that will also be something to see pretty soon too. I've wanted to cover Drake in a bigger way for a long time, but I also want to tell you guys of my own experience with The Weeknd, because I actually have a pretty intense thing that happened back in the day when I went to his concert. It's interesting because when I go to concerts or places where celebrities are, I can read them very easily. It's actually kind of cool. I wish that I can be in front of so many different celebrities just so I can get a read on them. You know what I mean? But anyway, now let's get back into Karen Reed. If you have not heard about this case, I highly recommend going to Max and taking a watch. There is, I think, 4 or 5 episodes. I think it's 5 on this documentary. And it's just going through everything that happened on this case and also talking about Karen's perspective as well. I won't be going through everything in the trial, but I'll go through the key points of it. All right, here we go. So Karen Reed's actually a 44-year-old equality analyst, and she's also a professor from Canton, Mass. She was accused in January of 2022 of killing her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Now, John O'Keefe is a Boston, Mass police officer. Now, on the night of January 28th, 2022, after attending a gathering with John and his friends, aka colleagues, Karen and John had plans to go to one of their friends' home, a fellow officer friend named Brian Albert. Now, according to Karen, she was drunk way past the limit. So was John, but she was the one driving and there was a snowstorm going on. Karen, when she drinks, gets pretty angry. She ended up getting frustrated because she was also supposed to go to this gathering and he didn't come back, at least in an appropriate time for her. And then thus the reason she ended up leaving him there. Unfortunately, John's body was later found in the snow and he was dead. Now, Karen has actually been charged with second-degree murder and that she had intentionally killed John O'Keefe and then just let him die in the snow. The prosecution had argued evidence such as taillight fragments were found at the scene supports the claim that she was in fact the one that killed him, and intentionally so. Now, let's be completely honest. Karen should not drink. She should at least not drink to the point of blackout or the point of being completely drunk, because she is not an easy person to be around when she is drunk. And I would say that a lot of people had that opinion about her as well, excluding their own drunkenness. But I would agree. I don't think she needs to go to that length. It's an unfortunate reality of the way the world is working. We want to stop everyone from smoking marijuana, but we don't want to stop having people drink. And since Karen was really drunk, she doesn't remember a lot of what happened. It is, without a doubt, very possible that Karen could have hit him. And it's a believable story because it's possible. It makes sense. I don't believe that she should walk away 100% from this case. I definitely think she should get a DUI. I also think she might even need her license taken away. But I do not see that she killed John. I don't even see that she hit him. Now, Karen has maintained that she's never hit John, or at least intentionally hit him. And then as time progressed, Karen started to believe she was framed. Her defense suggests that John was attacked inside of the home and then left outside to die, while these other people in this home just kind of sat there. Now, you guys had a lot of questions for me when it came to this case, and we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. Now, who is Karen? Karen is your typical Boston woman, at least the women that I grew up with back in the day. That same energy. She does not pull punches, and she can fight. And she's got one hell of a mouth on her. Or you've offended her, she has no problem telling you that you are in the wrong. I would say that she's gotten into a fight or two back in the day. She's a very protective mama bear type, and she will fight for kids and your kids. With that being said, that mixture of alcohol definitely elevates that, and I feel like Karen can become a version of herself that is not good. I hope one day she gets to a point of giving up alcohol, because I think it would really help her out. When it comes to John and why she and John stayed together out of convenience, how many women do you know that stay with men out of convenience, out of length of time of being together, not wanting to start over? You know, they had a history. Even though they weren't together that long, they knew each other for a very long time. I see that she did love John, but her and John should have broken up a while ago. Their two demeanors are very different. And from what I can see, Karen, although she enjoyed hanging out with people, she really just liked to be at home as well. John's more of a flashy kind of, I want to go out in public and see people kind of guy. And she would go because that's what he wanted. She didn't not like it, but she'd prefer not to go. I do also believe that John might have suspected that Karen was cheating on him, but I don't feel like he had any proof at that point. And from what I can see, although Karen was technically, emotionally cheating, I just don't feel like she ever got to a physical point with this other boyfriend that she had, which if you watch the documentary, you'll hear all about him. I feel like things started up with her and Brian, not the Brian cop, but another Brian, because she was feeling lonely, because she was feeling like he wasn't putting her as a priority. I feel like Karen put John as a priority on her list, and he didn't have that same demeanor with her, so it made her angry. He put his kids ahead of her, which is understandable, and I think she was always okay with that. But the thing that he did do was put his co-workers, other officers ahead of him. He had to fit into the little club. They always had to entertain each other. They felt like they were unstoppable, untouchable, that kind of thing. And I feel like John felt a lot of pressure. He loved it. Don't get me wrong. He loved being a police officer because there's a connection to his grandfather. He also saw a lot of shady dealings as well, things that he was not interested in. He was a good guy. I also feel like John had moments where he was flirting with other women as well. And not in a bad way, but it was just something that he did. The two of them were just hanging on, and they shouldn't have been. She was definitely angry with John, and he was angry with her, and I gotta tell you, the two of them had zero business being together. Kind of answered this question already, but let's go over this question. Do I feel like she killed him? And if she did kill him, do I feel like it was intentionally done? I don't see that Karen is capable of murder. I see that she was pissed at him. She was always pissed at him. But I just don't even see her hitting him. Even if she had done so accidentally, I still don't even feel that way. I do, however, see that she was slipping and sliding all the way home. I even feel like there might have even been a cop out, but because of the weather, no one thought anything different. I even see her hitting like a snowbank, which could be the reason that she thought she hit him to begin with, because she did hit something. It was not in front of Brian's home. It was a little bit further down. I also see that those calls to him were genuinely sincere. If she had intentionally killed him, why would she be calling him? I also see that she went back to his home because she was going to break up with him. She didn't even go in the bed. She laid on the couch because she was waiting for him to come home so she can ream him out and then walk out. She is someone I would call a runner. Instead of dealing with the problems, she'll yell for a few minutes, but then she runs away because she doesn't want to say anything she doesn't mean. She doesn't want the fight to escalate, and she also wants them to come after her. I see that she had this plan in mind. John getting home, her yelling at him, basically telling him to screw off and to leave her alone, and then her bouncing out of that house and slamming the door hard and never seeing him again. Did it get to the point of Karen? No. Karen was incredibly impatient. With John, he was more so just angry, and he would react. And I don't think he got physically violent with her, but he definitely engaged in the anger and the aggression, and neither one of them should have been drinking, period. Now here's the question on everybody's mind. What happened to John before he died? So I do not see him being hit by any vehicle, not even a little bit. I do see that John went into the home. I again see Karen being very pissy about it. I see her screaming and hitting the steering wheel like within 2 minutes of John being in there. Like she was pissed because she wanted to just go home and just relax and enjoy her buzz, but instead we got to go make all these extra plans. She was not about that. She also was not a fan of a lot of his friends and colleagues, and they knew it. They also didn't really like her very much either. I feel like she was saying something like, 1 more minute. He's got 1 more minute. She was like looking at the clock. And then as soon as the clock changed, she was like, fuck you, John, I'm gone. And she bounced out of there. And she did it in an aggressive manner. Like she backed up, she went zooming down the street, which is why I think she hit something over on that street. That's where Karen's part in this situation ended. Now, John was only in the doorway. Now, Karen said she couldn't see into the doorway. I think that's because she was drunk or just doesn't recollect that moment. But I see that he was standing in the doorway with a few of them talking for a few moments. And then he was going to go back in and grab Karen. I think he was like bitching about her for a minute. So of course he didn't want her present for that. And I think he's done this before. So when she took off, they were like, well, you might as well come in. Now I do want to point out as well that John explains to me that he has seen hit and runs many a times. And that usually, especially when there's snow, people tend to be dragged. He wasn't dragged anywhere. His clothes was intact. There was nothing to suggest that he got hit by a vehicle, even though they want to make it seem that way. I also want to point out that this is not the first time that the two of them would have arguments publicly and then have these little fights. She enjoyed being pretty dramatic about their relationship, and she didn't really care who was there or not, especially when she was drinking. Now, here's a good question somebody asked. Was he still alive when Karen left? Was he injured at all before Karen left? Once everyone had realized that Karen had left, he came and sat down. I do see that he had another drink. I see that he was complaining about Karen and these women were consulting him. It's okay, John. She's a real shit person. We never liked her. You should just get rid of her. In fact, I feel like Jennifer had a big crush on John. Like, I know she was married and whatnot, but I don't know. Something's just telling me that she loved John so much, at least the attention he gave her. And she was always telling him to leave Karen. Now, this is one of those moments where she leaped in and was like right in there. And because he was trying to tell everyone that he was leaving her, she got right involved in the conversation and told him he should. And they also gave their feedback on her many a times. This just happened to be the final one. Now, I do see that John did get some information, and it could have been in relation to this other Brian guy and her cheating. Like, I feel like there was possibly even physical proof provided to John to say, we found out about this. In that moment, I feel like that was the worst thing they could have done to him in that moment, because he was escalating, and he was escalating even more. They should have waited until he wasn't drinking to share this, but I feel like they were just interested in fueling the fire. I do see that John got up abruptly and headed off to the washroom. And I think that he might have been puking or maybe just feeling dizzy. I mean, he had been drinking so much, so it doesn't surprise me, but there was some sort of reaction in the washroom, which is also another reason that Jennifer sent a message saying hello, because she was trying to see if he was okay. Not because he was outside, but nice try. I also feel like John, in the moment of, puking or just being sick in general, he knocked over a glass. Thus the reason that Jennifer sent that message. Now, John came back, and that's when Jennifer came to do the best friend talk, grabbing his hand, showing him support. She was the one who shared that Karen was screwing someone else. She wanted to be the hero. If you ask me, it had nothing to do with any other reason than she just wanted to make sure that Karen was out of the picture. She talked a lot of smack about Karen. Karen rubbed her the wrong way. I mean, doesn't surprise me. Karen had more of like a free life, where Jennifer had to keep her mouth shut a little bit more often. Now, what I can see is that John did not take this information lightly. I see that he was reacting heavily. In fact, yelling. Not at anyone directly, but just yelling in general. Now, he did have his coat off at this point. Thus, the point where I see that the dog came and bit him and grabbed on and latched and did not let go. And he was losing it. I feel like John was freaking out and blood was pouring everywhere, which, by the way, they never went inside to check if there was any blood on the inside. Interesting. Now, because of this happening, John got pissed off. He started feeling like everyone was attacking him. He was not in a good headspace. He took his coat and said, I'm going to wait for Karen outside. I'm going to get her to come pick me up. I think he even wanted to call a cab at some point. But either way, he was going to do it away from these people in that moment, because he just felt like they were all coming for him. Even though they weren't necessarily coming after him, he just felt that way in the moment, especially with the dog situation. And from what I gather, this dog has bitten people in the past. And not just once, like it was announced. I feel like it's happened at least 3 or 4 times. This part is the part that I'm confused about, and John has shared it, but in very small detail. I see a large thud, and then things went quiet. I see yelling and screaming and F-bombs. Everyone was coming outside. I don't even think John had his coat on at this point. He just had it on him. Now, it is very possible that in this confusion, that John was assuming that Brian, as in the sergeant, the officer that lived in the house, was the one screwing Karen, not the other Brian. And I think he was lashing out at him. And from what I gather, the two of them started to fight. And from what I can see, that's where the blunt force trauma came from. I don't necessarily think that he hit him over the head, but I definitely feel like John smacked his head off of something and went down. Now, when all of this went on, I don't see that John responded. I see that they checked on him to make sure he was okay, see if he's breathing. They didn't want to get too much evidence on him. They checked from afar, I guess. Some police officers, they have. And that is when I feel like everyone went back inside to come up with a plan as to what to do. I believe that they were all under the impression that John was almost dead or just about to be dead. Now, I don't feel like any of these cops intentionally tried to kill John. I don't see that at all. But I do see that they intentionally tried to cover it up to pin it on Karen. Their intentions this particular evening was more so to make sure that John and Karen split up for good. I feel like John was going to get this information given to him soon, and they were going to do it today. John is telling me that Brian did not intentionally kill him, but something inside of me doesn't agree with him. I feel like he has a little bit of like the blinders on him. Something inside of me is telling me that Brian wanted to do this, even though I don't necessarily feel that way. And none of the information I'm getting from John is telling me. It's something about Brian that just feels dark and heavy. And I don't necessarily feel like he's a good person. And almost like after it happened, he was kind of proud of it in a way. I see that he had zero remorse for this situation, period. So that's why it makes me think, like, did he do this on purpose? I don't know. That's what I'm feeling. Like I said, John's not alluding to that. Even my visions aren't alluding to that. But me personally, something's off, you know? I feel like he's racist and homophobic, and I feel like he's planted evidence before. I feel like he's fucked with many different unsolved cases. In fact, I feel like there's a couple of people in jail, and not even in jail right now, but was in jail at some point at the hand of this guy, like in a bad way. Like he's done some shady shit. And I think that John knew some things that were happening, and he closed his eyes to it and said, no, this isn't really happening. Now, when it comes to the cover up, I see that Brian told everyone that, look, we can't have this on the Blues. We can't have this happen to our men. It comes out that we were involved in this. We're going to get an even worse reputation than we already have. And they did not want a Chicago Blue to go down for it. They wanted Karen to go down for it because in their mind, none of this would have happened if Karen had not left John there. So they wanted to blame Karen and put that on her as heavily as possible, which is when the plan ensued to go and get her involved, get her all over the place, get her riled up again. Oh yeah, I see these women who are trying to rile her up in the vehicle. Karen's already very dramatic and screaming and yelling. These women did not like her in the slightest, but from what I can see, Karen was losing her shit and they were trying to make her react so she would look guilty. And they were all doing this for John's sake. No, John would not have wanted this. And you know what's sad? This kind of shit happens all the time. The family wanted to make damn sure that John's killer was behind bars. Now, what did Brian, the homeowner, and the Brian Higgins boyfriend, aka Karen's new lover, have a conversation at 2:22 a.m. for 22 seconds for? What was that about? I keep seeing they needed to meet up. An important reason to meet up. I also believe that Brian also had a play in this. I don't know where, how, why, but I see that maybe he was put there in Karen's path. Get her away from John. I feel like that wasn't a real romance. Like something was planted there because I am seeing that they were trying to break this relation up so bad that they may have even done that part too. I also see these women rolling their eyes at each other when Karen's reacting, but enjoying it because it helps their case. Of course, they brought everybody in, told who they needed to tell, and thus the story that Karen killed him. Now, when Brian and Brian met up, what happened? Now, Brian was informing the other Brian to get rid of the phone and destroy the SIM card because the SIM card is what's truly needed. And Brian, being a cop, would know that. There was a lot of evidence on that phone as well because I feel like they had conversations with each other about this relationship. And obviously, thus the reason that Brian found out about it in the first place. But there is the reason why everyone got involved there. He contacted everyone he had to, shared the information with everyone he needed to, including a few people that were under oath. And the autopsy reported blunt force trauma to the head and hypothermia for his death. Do I believe that they planted the tailgate? Absolutely. Now, a lot of what they said was correct, but I also feel like there were a couple of pieces of her taillight at the pile of snow that she hit, maybe even a tree there. It could have even been like a pile of snow, but a branch or a tree or even a bushel behind this snow, and she didn't realize that. But I see that it wasn't even from John's car and hitting it. I see that it was because she hit it in a snowbank. So they didn't have to really go far to start collecting pieces. And yes, they took off other pieces of her vehicle and put it at the crime scene. Absolutely. Now, what do you think of Jennifer McCabe? I see that Jennifer was probably one of the first people to throw Karen to the wolves, since she had already convinced herself that Karen had done this, even though she knows it's not true. I see that Jennifer volunteered her services every which way possible to make damn sure that this landed back on Karen's lap. I also see that Jennifer was sleeping with a few of her husband's top friends as well, not John. John was like her next prey. She and her husband have a very toxic relationship. If they're still together now, they should not be. She did not want John to die. I do see that part because she thought that she would have a great romance with John. The two of them could have something special. He would run away with her. Now, Karen had obviously come back at around 6 a.m. where this was all set up. The whole alibi was set up already. I see that Karen and the friends showed up and they already knew that John was dead. They also saw John. Everyone's trying to act like no one could see John in the snow, but they did, and they could. Now, John was rushed to the hospital and pronounced dead right away. Now, from what John shows me, he did pass away pretty quickly, especially the areas that were exposed to the cold. There was a moment where he was unconscious, and from what I can see, tried to come back, call for help, move in a way, and that was the last stitch attempt. And I don't see that any of them were around him at that point. Everyone was doing their chores that they had to do. I also believe that Brian saw that he was dead way before anyone else saw he was dead. Now, why did he have such an aggression and anger towards John? John was younger. John was more reliable. He was a good cop. This guy was getting older, out of touch, maybe possibly being replaced by John at some point. At least that's where his mind might have gone. I even feel like Brian was also in the process of getting in trouble for something else too. And John may have had to be put on the stand against this situation. And that also would not have helped Brian. In his mind, Brian was like, I mean, it's a loss, but is it that much of a loss? And from what I can see, Brian would have gone away for a long, long time. But another case, which is why I believe John has a motive. I just can't see it. Now, what will happen when Karen goes back to trial? It's good and bad, I guess. Although Karen's defense team did a pretty good job last time, they've got to start fresh. They have to come up with new stuff. Everyone knows each other's moves, so now we got to come up with new information. I see that they've spent a lot of time already angling in how they're going to come up with this, more so forcing the blame on someone else. And I feel like they're going to start pushing that blame onto Brian. And from what I can see, it is going to take quite a while for this trial to go through, but I also see her having a happy face at the end. I believe that she will actually not end up getting sentenced. She'll get a not guilty verdict, and I feel like she'll be free to go, finally. It will be a very stressful trial. I'm not going to lie about that. And the interesting thing is that I don't feel like they'll go after anyone else after Karen. Now, people are coming after Karen from John's family, I believe, on the civil side of things, but I don't feel like they will be able to do anything criminally. Now, will they ever find out what truly happened to John? No, there's no evidence. There's no evidence suggesting anything other than the story they shared. I also don't believe that anyone will ever go down for his death or be accused of his death ever. But everyone will be, sadly, brainwashed, manipulated into believing these cops are really good, but in reality, a lot of them are shady. We will see more of the shady dealings come to the surface. We will have some character witnesses. I believe that will make Brian look pretty shady. So I think that will help them out a lot as well. Now, how does John feel about all this? A mess. He doesn't want everyone fighting. He didn't want his kids to go through this. He didn't want anyone to go through it. It's terrible. He hates this for his family. He doesn't blame them. He doesn't blame them for believing, because he always stood up for the blue. So why wouldn't they stand up and be there and support and assume that these cops know exactly what they're doing? He also misses most of his friendships. And although he now sees a lot of what he should have been doing in his life versus what he did do in his life, he still has care for them and hopes that nobody goes down for this. He doesn't want anyone to go down for this because he looks at it like it was on him, it was an accident, and that is why he's no longer with us today. I also feel like John has kept a few things from me. He doesn't necessarily totally trust me because I'm not about that cop life right now. I mean, there's some wonderful, wonderful police officers out there, and I will never ever say that there isn't. There's a lot of scary ones out there as well. He does feel bad for Karen. He wishes people would leave her be. Let her live her life. He feels like she's suffered enough. He wishes he got to have that last conversation with her, letting her go. He feels like that eats away at her every day as well. But that is everything I have on the Karen Read case today. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will be back soon for Vanderpump Rules. And FYI, Landon will be joining us for that episode, so I cannot wait. But until next time, guys, stay freaked out.